The Vorthak Confederation believed they had won. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the cold metal wall of the underground bunker, feeling the vibrations of the orbital bombardment above. The aliens had been systematic. Every library, every museum, every digital archive on Earth had been targeted with surgical precision. They called it cultural sterilization, a more humane alternative to genocide. Erase a species' history, they reasoned, and you erase their identity. What remained would be docile, manageable, ready for integration into their galactic empire. Status report, Elena called to her team scattered throughout the facility. All surface archives are gone, reported Marcus, his voice hollow through the comm system. The British Museum, the Louvre, the Library of Congress, everything's been reduced to slag. Elena closed her eyes. Humanity's written history spanning millennia had been erased in a matter of hours. The Vorthak had done their research well, identifying every major repository of human knowledge and culture. They had been thorough, efficient, and utterly confident in their victory. But they had made one crucial mistake. Dr. Vasquez called Sarah from the deepest level of the bunker. Her voice carried an odd mixture of excitement and reverence. You need to see this. Elena descended the spiral staircase, passing levels of equipment and supplies that had been stockpiled for exactly this scenario. The government's contingency plans had anticipated many disasters, but even they hadn't fully grasped what lay sleeping in the bedrock beneath the Rocky Mountains. The chamber at the bottom was natural, a limestone cave that had been carefully preserved rather than excavated. Ancient symbols covered the walls, not carved, but painted in ochre and charcoal, their lines still vibrant after tens of thousands of years. The orbital bombardment's vibrations had shaken loose centuries of accumulated dust, revealing artwork that predated written language by millennia. The Vorthak's bombardment, Sarah explained, running her scanner across the cave paintings. The seismic activity awakened something. Look at this. She pointed to a section of the wall where the ancient pigments seemed to shimmer with an inner light. The paintings themselves were moving, subtle at first, like heat mirages, but becoming more pronounced with each passing moment. Elena approached the wall and suddenly she could hear them. Not voices exactly, but something deeper. The accumulated whispers of every human who had ever lived, every story ever told around a fire, every song hummed by a mother to her child. The Vorthak had destroyed humanity's recorded history, but they had forgotten the most ancient archive, of all the one written in DNA and instinct in the collective unconscious of the species. It's responding to the trauma, Marcus breathed, having joined them in the chamber. The threat to our cultural existence is triggering something primal. The cave paintings began to tell their story, not the sanitized version found in textbooks, but the raw, unfiltered truth of humanity's journey from the African savanna to the stars. Here was the memory of the first tool, the first fire, the first word spoken in darkness to drive away fear. Here were the migrations across continents, the survival through ice ages, the endless cycle of civilizations rising and falling and rising again. But more than that, the awakening brought with it something the Vorthak had never encountered in their conquest of a dozen species, the weaponized stubbornness of humanity itself. Elena felt it first as a warmth in her chest, spreading through her body like liquid fire. Around her, the other humans in the bunker straightened, their eyes clearing as if waking from a long sleep. Above ground, across the planet, every surviving human felt the same awakening, not supernatural but deeply fundamentally natural. It was the activation of traits that had carried their species through extinction events and genocides before. The communications array crackled to life as reports flooded in from hidden bunkers and scattered survivors worldwide. Base, this is Outpost 7. The locals here are different. They're organizing. They're fighting back with tactics we've never seen before. Command, the resistance cells in Asia are using coordinated strategies that aren't in any military manual. It's like they're accessing some kind of inherited knowledge. Elena smiled grimly as she listened to the reports. The Vorthak had tried to erase human history, not realizing that their greatest weapon wasn't written in books or stored on servers. It was written in their bones, coded in their very essence, the accumulated survival instincts of a species that had clawed its way to the top of one food chain and was prepared to do the same in another. The cave paintings continued their dance, now showing visions of the future, not prophecy, but possibility. Humans adapting to alien environments, learning enemy technologies, turning their oppressors' own tools against them. The paintings showed what the Vorthak had failed to understand, that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their knowledge, but their absolute refusal to give up. "Doctor," Sarah said, her voice filled with wonder. "The quantum resonance from the paintings, it's broadcasting on a frequency that reaches every human nervous system on the planet." Elena nodded, feeling the connection herself. Every human alive was now linked to this ancient network, sharing not just information, but something far more valuable, the unbreakable will to survive that had carried their species through every catastrophe in its history. The Vorthak had intended to erase humanity's past to control its future. Instead, they had awakened something that no amount of firepower could destroy, the living memory of a species that had survived everything the universe had thrown at them, and would survive this too. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion began, Elena felt hope. The Vorthak had made the mistake of thinking that erasing the recordings of humanity's story would silence humanity itself. They were about to learn that some stories are written too deep to ever be erased.